Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Film Club podcast, where every week me and Miss Boo take turns picking films to watch and talk about. Some are good, some are bad, but they are always fun at the Film Club. But you should forget about the Film Club, because tonight we are the Horror Club. You really like the laugh at the end, don't you?
It's fun. It adds a little panache to the episode.
Panache, that's what we need more of.
That's right. I threw out that $10 word today.
Ooh, I don't know if our budget can allow the $10 words today. But this week, as we count down to Halloween, we're talking about one of your picks, if I'm not mistaken.
It is my pick this week, and we're also kicking off our Undead September.
We are kicking off our Undead September, because every week for the month of September, we're going to be talking about a film that has undead characters, or zombies, vampires, ghouls,
mummies,
ghosts, so on and so forth. But what are we talking about this week?
Well, today, to kick off Undead September, we're going to be talking about the true classic, near and dear to my heart, and to so many. The Mummy, the 1999 version with Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz.
Yep, directed by Stephen Sommers.
That's correct.
And this is going to be interesting, because I don't think I had seen this movie since, 2008. It's been a long time.
That's an oddly specific year to track it back to.
Well, because that is the last time I went up to my cousin's house in Fresno before they, moved, and that's where I used to watch it all the time. That was, the go-to movie to get the kids to shut the fuck up for 2 hours.
Ah, I see.
So that's why I know it's been that long. But yeah. So I didn't know what I was expecting to get into this movie. I know it's really fondly remembered, and I don't know if that was nostalgia or not.
You mean beloved?
Yeah, it's very beloved, and I figured out why. I'm this movie's a banger. This movie's great.
I mean, there's a ride after this movie.
There is, but hey, I came in with reservations, and I was pleasantly surprised.
It's a great movie.
It is. So, when was the last time you watched it, though? Or is
apart from last night?
Apart from last night, because I know you usually, when it's a pick that you have, your response is, oh, I watched this a month ago. All the movies we've watched so far that are your picks, you've watched them aggressively throughout the year. So when was the last time?
No,
6 weeks ago?
That's not true.
A month ago? Was this an every year movie?
Maybe a few months ago.
Maybe a few months ago?
Yeah, I watch this a couple times a year.
Okay. But what about when you first saw it?
When I first saw it, I must have been 10, because I think I saw it the year after it came out. It came out in 1999. Mm-hmm. And it's weird to think that this is a 90s movie.
Yeah, it's barely in 90s movies because it's 99, but also this movie's 23 years old now. So
weird. It doesn't feel like...
that old?
Yeah, it feels like, it's still pretty fresh and new, and I think that's kind of a good thing, that it's aged gracefully.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is the effect work in the movie isn't actually that bad.
No, it's really good.
Yeah, and it kind of goes with the thing, because they had ILM, Industrial Light and Magic, who did famously all the Star Wars movies, a bunch of the Marvel movies. They're the guys you want to do high-end visual effects, and they did this, and I think they said 80% of the budget went to the VFX for this movie.
Oh, definitely.
It was a shit ton of money.
But I mean, with as much praise and money that this movie made, day 2 of the movie, premiering, Stephen Sommers got a call from Universal and you got to make a second one. Yeah. Because it was just that big of a hit right out of the gate.
It was huge when it came out. I don't think people understand the gravity of how big this was. This movie signaled okay, so this movie comes out in 99, and it had been in production hell for years, since the 80s.
Oh yeah.
I think at any one point, George Romero, Clive Barker, Joe Dante had all been attached as a director.
Which I was very surprised about learning that, these big name directors, even Wes Craven, considered.
Wes Craven, I think he got a call and he turned him down.
Yeah. And I think George Romero had said yes, but I think it was a little too violent and gruesome.
Well, he went into a pre-production phase, and basically when he brought it to them, they were like, all right, and George Romero, being George Romero, was like, I want creative control, and they were like, you can walk your ass out the door right now, because we ain't giving you this much money with creative control. Which is weird, because Sommers actually just kind of got creative control by the time he got it, but that was 15 years after George Romero.
I mean, it would have been interesting to see mummy zombies. Because, I mean, we get them in the movie.
Yeah.
But, I mean, like, George Romero
Zombies.
That would have been something.
Oh, yeah. But back to the thing. So this went through, like, all that production hell. Sommers, he managed to sell it to Universal as, it's not going to be a horror movie. It's going to be, like, this pulp adventure action flick.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, okay, so we can sell it as a blockbuster. And, like, yes. But we're going to need some extra money. And Universal, since they lost a bunch of money on Babe, Pig in the City, so they basically gave him carte blanche to make whatever he wanted. I think they gave him like $100 million in 90s money.
Yeah.
And he made this, and yeah, it was, I think, the third highest grossing film of that year. No, I don't think it was the third. It might have been like the fourth or fifth, because the highest grossing movies of the year 99 was Star Wars Episode 1, which obviously,
yes,
even if that movie is bad, that made all the money.
Yeah.
And then it's like The Sixth Sense and Toy Story 2. Those are the top three. And then it's like Tarzan, and then The Matrix and The Mummy are there. I don't know if they're the same year.
A lot of good movies came out in 99.
Oh, I got into a talk with a friend of mine who is convinced 99 is like the best year for film.
Wow, I had no idea that all those movies came out in 99.
Yeah.
And I saw a good majority of those in the theater.
I mean, yeah, if you're over... I think, Star Wars Episode 1 was the first film I saw in a theater. And,
ever?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, Boo. It happens. That was the first one we ever saw in a theater, and then Toy Story 2 probably saw in the theater. Tarzan, I know I saw in the theater. Matrix, I don't think I saw in a theater.
No.
I think I saw that, like, just a little, like, the month or two after it came out on, like, VHS or some shit. But, yeah, so this movie made a shit ton of money, and got greenlit, like, right away. And, oddly enough, for a lot of movies that are these big blockbuster hits, usually they make either a lot of money and are not critically acclaimed, or critically acclaimed and not make a lot of money.
Right.
Very few do both. This movie actually got real high critical praise, but it didn't win, like, any awards, which is weird.
Yeah.
It didn't even win a VXF award. Like, no visual effects awards,
I mean,
anything like that.
how do you not? Because, I mean, a lot of the visuals in this movie are flawless. Because, I mean, Imhotep alone, he's constantly in a different stage of transformation.
Yeah. And even with all the fight scenes, Brendan Fraser famously, he acted against nothing when he had to do all the fights with the mummies.
Yeah.
So that was all just him doing, like, painstaking choreography.
Yeah.
To do those fight scenes, which are really, like, fluid and very clean. But, but all the critics basically praised it for its effects are gorgeous. The characters are really fun. They're like, it's not Citizen Kane, but I loved every minute of it. It was that kind of movie. It was a very big, crowd-pleasing kind of film.
And I'm surprised it wasn't a summer blockbuster.
Yeah, this came out in what?
It came out May 7th of 99, so...
No, May 7th, that's spring.
That's spring, so...
But
just the
that's also the same time when Titanic comes out. May became the... I mean, think about it. If you look, most big Marvel films come out in May.
Yeah.
Because that's, like, starting spring, and then you can ride the spring wave into the summer.
It's summer, yeah.
And you can get a long run and make a lot of money if you start in May. Which, this movie did. I think it ran the whole year of 99.
I wouldn't be surprised.
So, but yeah, so this is an interesting film.
It is.
It's a remake, but it's not a remake in the same vein.
Yeah, but to go back to your original question, I saw this probably the year after it came out. So whenever it came out on VHS, I remember seeing the commercials, and I was bugging my mom, I want to see the mummy, because...
You were a Universal kid?
Universal Monsters kid all the way through. And she was like, no, it's too scary for you. And then I remember, like, the next weekend, my dad got it from Blockbuster. And he was just like, don't tell your mom. So we watch it, and not scary at all. You have a couple of jump scares in the movie.
Yeah, I think, because there are a few moments in it that are creepy, but it's not a gruesome movie, really.
No.
Yeah, like, there's no real gore, there's no real, like, terror or anything like that. It's basically just an action movie at the end of the day.
Yeah, so that's why I was kind of like, oh, you know what? It's not scary. It's got a really good story. I mean, for a 10-year-old to be engaged the entire way through, I mean, I think it really cemented my love for Egyptology, too. I just wanted to
You
learn
wanted
more.
to be Evelyn?
Yeah, I wanted to be an explorer out there, looking for artifacts and finding treasure and, finding, ancient documents. There's just something special. It's not, super draped in mummies where it's, kind of like Scooby-Doo where, here comes the mummy chasing us down the hallway. It's like, no, there's actual story and there's history and it's just...
And also, I think it goes in with the fact that Evelyn, Rachel Weisz's character, she's not really a damsel in distress because she's the one who knows everything. Yeah, Brendan Fraser, who's playing Rick O'Connell, he's the hero, the archetypal square-jawed, gun-toting action hero, but he doesn't know anything. Evie knows how to, like, win the game and is the smart one of the group.
Yeah, Rick is the hero, the muscle, the map because he's been to Hamunaptra, and this is only a place that she's read of and wanted to discover, but, like you said, she's really the one that wins the game in the end because she knows all the pieces.
Yeah. So I think that's also an interesting thing, because that's a lot of things people praised about this was Rachel Weisz being just not a damsel in distress in a 90s action movie.
Exactly. She
very surprising.
Took no crap from nobody, saved everybody in the end.
Yeah, it's a really fun movie. Another reason a lot of people really retroactively like this movie is because it was kind of the last old style, like, action blockbuster films kind of made, because this comes out in 99, we have Mummy Returns in 2003, I think around 2007, 8 is when we get the third Mummy movie, and then after that, it's Marvel characters, like Iron Man.
And then it wouldn't be till years later when we get the Mummy again with Tom Cruise, and that just...
It's sunk.
It's sunk.
Yeah, and that's kind of an interesting thing where the series was the last of those, like, old pulp serial action movies.
Yeah.
It was like there's no more Indiana Jones style action films anymore. This was basically the last original one.
So The Mummy Returns came out in 2001.
Really? It was 2 years after?
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense. But that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about this one. So, where do you want to start?
Let's start with the characters, since we were kind of getting into, like, Evie and Rick.
Okay. So, the characters we got here are archetypal at best. I mean, there's not really a lot of, like, subversive characters that go against type here, except, like, Evelyn.
Yeah.
Even though she's, like, still a damsel in distress, some eye candy, she's really smart and she does contribute to the plot and saving the day at the end. But everybody else is pretty by the numbers, right? Yeah,
I mean, when we first meet Evie, she's, a librarian, she's a bookworm, she's always got her nose in a book.
She's the bookish, clumsy, fairy girl.
Taking down the entire library in just one little tap of a bookshelf, yeah.
That scene, I think that had to be done in one go, in one day, because it took so long to set up. It would take him, like, another day to reset it.
Understandable. Yeah. I mean, I would think that would take probably longer than a day.
Nah, you got good crew.
Poor crew.
I know, right?
But yeah, we have, Rachel Weisz, who plays Evie. We have her brother, Jonathan, who's also kind of in the same field as she is,
Jonathan is a scam artist, all right? He's a scam artist that also happens to know a little bit about Egyptology because his parents were, like, explorers. That is Jonathan's character. Yeah. He is comic relief. Him and Benny are comic relief.
And that's actually our first jump scare that we get in the movie, is with Jonathan when he, pops the mummy out of the crypt in the museum display. Mm-hmm. Which always gets me. It's like, I know it's coming up. I think it's just the sound, it's just like, my God.
It's good sound work,
It is. It's
an
really
earned
good.
Jump scare.
We have Benny, who's more comic relief in the movie.
Benny is straight up comic relief. And that actor, I've seen him in a bunch of random movies. Yeah. And I don't think I've ever seen him not under, like, pounds of makeup.
Yeah.
And even in this movie, like, you would think, oh, he's not, he just looks kind of like that. And then you see an actual picture and he's under pounds of makeup. And also, Benny and Rick are not friends? Are they kind of friends or friendly? Or
I think
what?
They're frenemies.
They're frenemies. They fight against each other, but respect the player, hate the game.
Exactly, because when we first start the movie, we see them at war together, where they're both fighting for the French military.
They're in the French Foreign Legion.
So they're, in Hamunaptra, and then we see, Benny just kind of ditch Rick and then really, lock Rick out with the Magi.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, Benny, and then throughout the entire movie, it's just tit for tat, okay, who's going to get the next zinger or the next hit?
Oh, looks like I have all the horses.
Looks like you're on the wrong side of the river.
One
of the best lines of the movie.
It's funny, and all of our comedy comes from him and Jonathan.
Yeah.
Which I think this movie really wants, because I don't think the movie works without good comedic relief.
Yeah. Otherwise, it would just be kind of like
it'd be a really bland action movie, right? There's good action set pieces, but without the comedic aspect to it and the few moments of like real scary stuff,
yeah,
this would be a pretty by the numbers action movie with just a different setting.
And it would still be a good action movie.
No, it'd be a good action movie. I just don't think it would be as loved if it was just an action movie.
Yeah, you need that comic relief to kind of...
Well, it smooths over the edges.
Yeah.
And
then we also have the mysterious Ardith Bay.
Yeah, okay. Because Ardith Bay is the name of
Boris Karloff in the original Mummy from 1932, I believe.
I don't know if it was 32, but it's definitely back there, maybe 35. But yeah, and I realized this, we don't actually get his name in the movie. He's just like a Magi. I don't think they ever say his name.
We don't get his name until the Mummy Returns.
Yeah, and the whole Magi order is really just fun and interesting because it adds a whole like mythology.
It was 1932. Sorry.
Oh, how to get the comeuppance there.
I had to know. I need to know all my monster facts.
You need to know everything. But
just
yeah,
monster stuff.
So it is fascinating because the Ardith Bay character and him being a Magi and that implication that there's this deep order adds lore to the story that I think is really nice and really needed.
Oh yeah.
For the series to work, right?
Yeah, we definitely need that kind of that order set of, okay, we have this incredibly dangerous person that could destroy the world. Mm-hmm. We have to have a legion of this little army that is going to protect the secret and essentially protect the world.
Yeah.
So this Imhotep's been dead for 3,000 years when we get to our story in the 1920s.
Something like that, yeah.
So just, the fact that this secret has been passed on for the last 3,000 years to, essentially keep humanity alive.
Yeah, it's just a really nice work of just like this is a lore thing. We don't really have to explain it, but the implication is good enough to like for you to ride on.
Yeah, and it's a nice nod and Easter egg to Boris Karloff, who played Ardith Bay in the original Mummy, and Ardith Bay is also an anagram for Death by Ra.
Yeah, it's a really interesting little trivia factoid for you. But yeah, like there's just so many good characters in here. All the Americans are fun, even if they are like one-dimensional jokes.
They're considered the cowboys.
The cowboys, yeah, which is fun. Like, and then, we have a lot of good characters in here.
Yeah, I mean, even the doctor that Evie works for in the library.
Oh yeah, Dr. Terrence Bay.
Yeah, who is secretly cousins with Ardith Bay and has, is a part of this secret legion to keeping Imhotep,
I'm thinking about the implication he's born a Magi. They're just like, all right, he must protect this for all costs, at all opportunities. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna go to like med school though. Like,
and become a doctor.
And become a doctor. Do the Magi have like a scholarship program for that? Like, what's going on? Can we get some of that Egyptian gold to pay for my medical expenses or school expenses? It's just a funny little like thought bubble I went through, but I
mean, it was like early 1900s. You never know what kind of scholarships were around back then.
Probably not many, but yeah. We also have our main characters Rick and Evie. We talked about them a little bit,
and we have to talk about Imhotep, obviously.
Yeah. Who plays him? Arnold Vosloo. Okay. And I don't think Imhotep has like more than like 5 lines in this whole movie, and his presence alone is enough to just be off-putting and like like intimidating.
Definitely.
You know, like the actor, I think he said for like 10 years after this movie, kids would like yell at him "bad mummy" and run away.
Bad mummy.
Bad mummy. I swear it was like little kids, right? Like
Yeah.
6, 7, 8, shit like that, and would see him in like the grocery store, be like, "That bad mummy," and run away. And he was like, "Yeah, greatest highlight of my career." I'm like, good on you, dog. Good on you.
I mean, he's an Agent Cody Banks. He's the bad guy in the movie.
Oh my god, did none of these people work after the 2000s? Jesus
But
Christ.
I mean, even in Cody Banks, he only says a couple of lines, but he's there as, you know, kind of like the bad guy's henchman, his muscle, so he's just quiet. But even quiet, he's got something.
He has an intimidating presence.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's the fact he's like 6'3", bald and kind of jacked. That's probably helps.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And Imhotep, you know, is a real person in
Yeah, he was
in
an
history.
architect in Egypt.
Yeah, so he wasn't a bad guy. He was actually someone very important in Egyptian history. Yeah, so Imhotep really wasn't a bad guy. He was the first guy to build one of the pyramids. So, you know, pretty cool, but in this story, Imhotep is just a badass that doesn't have to really say anything at all.
Yeah, and it's really good because, you know, what he does say, he speaks like ancient Egyptian, right?
Yeah, he doesn't speak English, which they wanted him to narrate the story. And it was just like, well, Imhotep doesn't speak English, so how is he going to suddenly speak English to narrate?
I like how that was the thing Sommers was like, you know, he doesn't speak English. And all the producers in the room were just like, so it's a movie. And he's like, no, he doesn't speak English. I'm like, Arnold Verlu, he speaks English. Like, I think he's an American actor. And they're like, nah, he doesn't speak English. He's an ancient Egyptian. We'll get Ardith Bey to do it. And I'm like, okay, sure, whatever.
I think one thing that Universal dropped the ball on that they should have done, I mean, apart from, you know, Imhotep doesn't speak English, you know, that whole debacle.
Yeah.
Originally, they wanted to use the old Universal logo at the beginning and then have that burn into the desert, into the war scene.
Well, Stephen Sommers, he used that idea when he did Van Helsing a couple years later, which honestly is it's an interesting, like, thought for a director to have for one movie, and then he's like, I can't really do it for this one, but I really like it, so he carries it over, like, 2-3 movies down the road and then makes it, which, you know, is kind of interesting. A lot of, like, ideas permeate through projects then form other ones, which is an interesting director thing.
Yeah, and I mean, it would have been really cool to see, you know, especially since this movie has such a strong tie-in with the original movie. I think it
doesn't.
Well,
there ain't dick other than Imhotep and Ardith Bey's name that are even relevant to the first
same
one.
studio.
Is any of the story the same? Is a Rick O'Connell in the 32 Mummy?
No, but
I
mean...
Evelyn in the 32 Mummy.
My God.
I'm sorry, but, like, this is basically a remake in name only.
Yeah, but it's the same studio, the history is there. That's why I thought it'd be cool to bring it back to the original logo of the 30s to today's logo.
I feel that's probably why Sommers didn't do it, though, was he wanted to make a point that this is the Mummy, but it's not your old style Mummy. It's its own thing, which it really is. I think we should talk about that, because this is a remake, but... Yeah. Okay, I've heard this argument before where a remake should either be use only the broadest strokes from the original and tell its own story, so you don't sully the original. Yeah. And other people are like, well, you just do the same movie beat for beat, but you update some effects or some, you know, not so aged well parts of the script.
Yeah.
I wonder where you sit on the spectrum here, because one of my favorite movies is The Thing, and that's a remake of The Thing from Another World by Howard Hawks. And those movies are broad strokes, kind of, sort of related, but in any of the details, they're completely different movies.
Yeah, you know, if I'm going to watch a remake, I'm in that same camp of I want them to be very broad strokes of the original movie, because if you're just going to make a shot for shot of the original, I'm just going to watch the original.
Yeah, there's no point. Which I think happens with a lot of films that were made in, like, foreign countries and then remade in America, where they're almost shot for shot for the most part, and then just certain, like, localization things are done.
Right.
But this film, is interesting because I don't even think it uses any of the broad strokes from the original.
No, it's just...
It's literally like we took
title,
the name and a couple characters, namely just Imhotep, and everything else is different. I think even the time frame is different because I think in the original it's 32 and this one's 25.
Yeah, 25 with the war, maybe 20. I think we jump 5 years when Evie and Rick finally meet.
No, it opens in 22.
Oh, okay.
Well, it opens in 3200 BC.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's 1922, 25, which is an interesting place to set it. I think I'm going to keep going back to it. I think Sommers really wanted to make an Indiana Jones pulp adventure story. He wanted to make Doc Savage, and this was probably the best way for him to do it. Cuz I'm a big fan of like pulp adventure stories. Conan, Lovecraft, Doc Savage, things like that. I'm a fan of them cuz they're fun adventure, stuff.
Yeah.
And this really lines up with all of that. Wisecracking, 9 vulnerable superhero main character.
Period piece.
Yeah, well, a lot of them are set in the 20s because that's just when they were written.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's set in like a much older, past world. They're exploring these weird exotic locales. They're coming up against these strange exotic combatants. There's, these huge stakes of saving the world. And this really is it. It's Indiana Jones with a monster flick in it.
Yeah.
That's basically what it is. And it's a really good use. I'm really sad that this didn't become a trend more.
Yeah.
But
I think that's what makes this film so special. Mm-hmm. Because it's its own entity and
it's the last of the trend of the Indiana Jones ripoffs.
Yeah. But I mean, it's a really good one.
It's a really good ripoff.
I mean, it's a lot of fun. The fact that Imhotep is just so angry because of his woman.
Yeah.
He can't have his woman, who is a Noxunamun in the movie, who is the mistress of Seti.
Yeah.
And she, up and kills Seti, stabs him in the back.
Massive betrayal.
Stabs him in the back, Imhotep helps, and then they get caught.
They get got, and they get killed.
They get got and killed.
And
as you do, and Arnold Vosloo was, wrapped up in the whole, the gauze and everything.
I heard that he, got claustrophobia from doing that. That freaked him the fuck out.
Well, I mean, they wrapped him up completely, covered the mouth, covered the eyes. Yeah, I'd be freaking out too if I can't move.
I want to imagine it was like somebody's explaining, don't worry, you'll be able to breathe, but you're not going to be able to move at all.
I'm just wondering, I was watching, the documentary of the movie, and they show the part where they pour the beetles into the sarcophagus with him.
Yeah.
Even though it's not a lot. They pour, 5 in to kind of, give him the incentive of, okay, you're covered in bugs.
Of movement, and then they CGI the rest.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, was that him in there? So it's okay, we've got you freaked out because you're completely wrapped up. Now we're going to drop some bugs on you.
I mean, they might have had a stunt person do that, but I imagine he might have just been yeah, sure, whatever, not thinking that it was going to be that much of a hassle.
It's I'm already panicking enough, so go ahead, do what you need to do.
Well, in that situation, it's probably the close-up of him, his face getting wrapped, and then they just change camera positions.
Yeah.
So he might have been wrapped up for a couple hours while they just shot that. And they were yeah, we don't need to get a stuntman to wrap you, it'll be fine.
Which, terrifying.
Indeed. Well, another interesting thing about the whole stunt aspect, so Brendan Fraser, lead actor in this, who people said he disappeared from mainstream big budget Hollywood flicks for a decade.
Yeah.
He just kind of got a career comeback doing, I think it was the Doom Patrol?
Yeah, in 2018?
2018. Yeah, he just got back. Well, he did, I think The Affair was the thing that he showed back up in that I was oh wow, Brendan Fraser's back. And there's been a lot of speculation as to why he kind of stopped working, but because I'm anal retentive and I did a lot of research on this subject, I figured out why.
Yeah.
So there's a few contributing factors. One of them is he got a divorce, so that got a big, he had a legal thing incentivized him to have to look for other things to keep money going. There's a whole custody battle, all that stuff.
I think his mother also passed away in that same time frame.
Mother also passed away. There's an accusation of him being assaulted, which trigger warning. But the biggest one that has basically been consistent was he did not use stuntmen.
No.
And he did all his own stunts, and he did a lot of movies back to back that were physically trying. He had to do stunts, he had to, do things like that. And he basically, over the course of like 5 years, broke his body down. So he had to spend 7 years getting like surgeries and stuff like that. Because looking at Brendan Fraser, you might not think it, but he's a big guy. I think he's like 6'2", 6'3", and I think even in shape, he still walks around at like 220, 30 pounds. So imagine taking bumps all day for like 3 years.
Well, I mean, I read somewhere in one of the interviews that Rachel Weisz did. I think their first day of shooting was the scene where he gets hung, and they actually had to resuscitate him because they hung him.
Yeah, somebody screwed up the safety harness, and instead of making it an inch tighter, so when it goes, all the weight is distributed to his gut, right? Yeah. So it's like, boom, you stop, but you're not going to hurt yourself. It's the weight's just distributed.
Yeah.
They made it an inch longer, so the whole weight of his body got caught on his neck, so he literally just went down and like passed out.
Yeah.
He's kicking, and they're like, oh, great acting, and then just stop moving. They're like, oh shit, Brendan, oh fuck, and then cut him down, and they found out that he passed out.
And I mean, in all through the movie too, he's getting kicked and hit and thrown.
All the choreography he probably had to learn, and that he had to learn, because you can see his face the whole time. This isn't at a point where you were able to CGI an actor's face onto a stunt person.
Yeah.
This was where either you get a stuntman who vaguely looks like him and put a wig on, or you get the actor to, I'm saying it very poorly, but nut up and do it.
And that's very much how he is. And I was reading an interview with him where he said at that time period, he was like, yeah, I was giving it like 200% and just throwing myself around and taking hits and taking blows. And he's like, I paid for it. He goes, I was having surgery for this. I think he said for The Mummy 2, he had to do, he did like a bunch of research on like ice packs, so he had everything just packed in his costume to kind of like keep things cool that were hurting, and it's just like, dude, you're doing too much.
I think by the time the third Mummy movie came in, he figured out a way I think it's why he looks bulky in that movie. He's a little bit older, so he might have put on extra weight, but he was wearing bicycle padding under his entire costume because of how much like damage he puts his body through. And he said before, he's like, I wanted to be this big action hero and be this big blockbuster star, but the way I went about it was a very self-destructive manner.
Yeah.
It's the thing where, if the candle that burns twice as fast burns half as long. So, it is what it is. But that's kind of interesting, because I'm really sad that we didn't get more Brendan Fraser, like, action movies.
Yeah.
Because I know that after this, he did have a couple that were not great films, and the Mummy series was kind of this is the blockbuster I can hang my hat on, and if I ever needed to go back and get back in the public spotlight, this is where I can go, because people love these movies. And after the third one, he kind of couldn't go back to it anymore.
Yeah.
So, but he's back now.
And Rachel Weisz didn't go back to the third one either, so it's kind of like,
I don't know why she didn't. I don't know if it was a thing she just didn't want to do it anymore, or because I was under the assumption she retired somewhere in the mid-2000s, and that's why she was done. But I know she isn't, because she was in the Black Widow movie, I think.
Yeah, she's still acting, but I think what I've read before is that she felt like The Mummy 2 was a good stopping point for their story.
Oh, I gotcha.
And I think the studio was kind of like, well, we want to continue the story, and she was just like,
you guys are a marketing machine.
Yeah.
We can make so much, like, pumping these out every couple of years.
Yeah.
Which, that's another fascinating question. Do you think that this could have been like an Indiana Jones style phenomenon with like a franchise? Because the reason the indie movies only had like 3, Raiders, Temple of Doom, and Last Crusade, is they were made back at a time where the blockbusters were still kind of new. The first one was made in 1980, 81?
Yeah.
And like by the time the 80s wrapped up, they figured out, I was like, oh, cool, we figured out how to basically milk a franchise for everything it's worth.
Mm-hmm.
And also Harrison Ford is Harrison Ford and has utter contempt for people. So that's probably why we're going to get more. But I feel like if Brendan Fraser didn't, have so many accidents, if Rachel Weisz still wanted to do it, like, I wonder how many movies they could have gotten out of this series.
Yeah, they could have gotten more. I mean, I
don't think any of them lost money. I don't even think the third one lost money, and it wasn't a good film.
Yeah, I've never seen it. I think I've seen, like, maybe 5 minutes of it. But I think what people want is they want the core group. It's not like indie where we just follow...
You just need indie, and you can basically write anything else.
I mean, granted, love Brendan Fraser, love the character Rick, but it's it's something special when you have the 3 of them, the 4 of them, Ardith Bay with them. Mm-hmm. It just adds to the story.
It's a nice thing because they're kind of like these team movies.
Yeah.
It's another thing going back to the Pulp series, like the Doc Savage and, Men of Tomorrow, where it's not just him, it's the whole group and team that go, around saving people, two-fisted justice and stuff like that. Where, Rick is, the action guy who does all the shooting. We have Jonathan, who's the comic relief. Evie's the smart one who actually does all the planning, and Ardith Bay is the wise, saged character who knows things that these people don't know because he's a warrior. And it's just an interesting thing. And then you have the plucky kid in the sequel.
Yeah, and which I could see, maybe years down the line, Universal maybe picks up with, okay, we're going to take the story with Rick and Evie's son and start new adventures there.
They might. I mean, it kind of sucks because I heard the... did you hear the myth about the Tom Cruise Mummy remake from 2017, 16, something like that?
The myth?
No. So, I don't know if it's... Because it's not... I don't think it's ever been confirmed. But this was the thing going around that the original script for The Mummy, because they wanted to do the Universal Dark Universe, where they're going to make an interconnected Universal Monsters pantheon, like the Marvel films.
Yeah.
And that there's going to be the Van Helsing character in it. Mm-hmm. And the legend, according to internet people, was that it was supposed to be Brendan Fraser, and the term Van Helsing was a title, not a not like a name.
Not
kinda
a person.
Kind of like 007.
Yeah.
And that Rick, because he fought the Mummy and all the stuff that happened in the sequels and all that stuff, he achieved this expanded lifetime. And Brendan Fraser was going to come back as Rick O'Connell in the Mummy remake as, of the Van Helsing character.
Okay.
And that was going to be a way to connect it to the most famous Marvel, or the most famous monster flick Universal made in the last 20 years, which was The Mummy, right? Yeah. But obviously that didn't happen, and no one's really sure if it's true. Because I've seen a couple of, sheets from a screenplay that had it, but I have no idea if those were real original screenplays. Because Tom Cruise, when he got on, he rewrote the whole fucking script. Yeah,
and a couple years ago, I finally sat down and watched it, because I was, very against the movie when it came out. I was like, whoa. I'm like, this isn't The Mummy. This is not what we've had. And
it made an attempt to modernize the story, but I don't think this story or even the idea works in a modern setting.
No, so that's why it's okay. It's an alright movie. It's something that you can sit through and watch and enjoy what's going on. But to kind of have this as the lead off into the dark universe for the monsters, I'm like, no.
Yeah, I think The Invisible Man was a much better film.
By far. And that was a perfect way to start off these new movies that are in pre-production or going to be coming out soon.
The films that are they're modernized retellings of these stories, but they're more or less non-connected. They just imply a expanded world. I don't even think The Invisible Man implied it was in an expanded universe.
No, but I mean, it was so brilliantly done, because I thought, what are we going to do that differs from the original, and how are they going to do it in this modern setting? And it was great.
Yeah. It was it's the story of a guy who goes power hungry because he can be invisible, and then they were like, wait, Griffin's not actually that interesting of character, but we can get a lot out of the people he torments because he's invisible. And then you kind of expand from that. It's a really good movie. Highly recommended. But back to the thing, because I think that's an interesting topic. So this movie, set in 1922, the original was set in the 30s, right? Yeah. So this story, the idea of these characters, Americans, traveling to Egypt and discovering this ancient Egyptian tomb or a lost city and the mummy's curse coming to attack them, blah, blah, blah. I feel that kind of story can only really take place at like early in time, like the 20s, 30s,
Yeah.
40s. Anything after that, it just gets really weird.
It gets weird, but it's also so easy to kind of romanticize the 20s.
Yeah.
And, you know, we have...
You're very guilty of loving, like, those romance 20s films.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're visually beautiful. The stories are engaging. So we have, you know, terrifying Imhotep, but at the same time, he's doing this because he wants to be reunited with his lost love.
Oh, what a man will do for the love of his life.
Dude will bring on the locusts, the flies, everything just to get his woman back.
And I think that's another interesting thing, because I think that's another reason why the movie works and why Imhotep is a good villain. And me and my brother, we talked about Blade Runner not too long ago on our film club, or on our Film Odyssey podcast.
Yeah.
Sorry. And we were talking about Roy Batty in that, and we liked him so much because he's such a justifiable villain.
Yeah.
The reason he wants to do these things, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
He wants to, you know, meet his maker because he wants to know, like, the purpose of his sentience, the purpose of his life, and he is angry because there is no point, blah, 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 philosophical stuff. There you go, the philosophical stuff. And in this, it makes sense. Imhotep, the reason he wants to bring back a Nox on the moon and all this other stuff is because, the love of his life, she was taken from him. He wants to bring her back, da-da-da-da-da. His outward villainy is to serve a goal. He's not just evil to be evil. Where I feel that's kind of the guilt of the Boris Karloff version. He is evil because he is evil. And
he also wants his woman.
Well, he wants his woman, but, like, let's be honest. Back then,
no,
that movie, he's just being evil to be evil.
Yeah.
His, like, romantic reasoning is very played down, but this is very played up. Like, the reason he kidnaps Evie is because, well, you look like a Nox on the moon, and I can use you to raise her from the dead.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a very good character and a very good lesson for screenwriting. If your villains should be the heroes of their own story, and what they should be doing should be serving a righteous cause to them.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a righteous cause to everyone else, but to him, he's like, I'm willing to usher in the apocalypse if it means I get my Nox on the moon back.
Yeah.
It's a good story.
And it's like, you know, where would they go from there?
Well, they have a sequel.
Well, no. I mean,
Yeah.
if he were to achieve his goal and getting a Noxuna moon back, it's like, well, where do you go? The world has changed.
He's like, oh, Montana seems nice. We'll get a farm, get some dogs, have some kids.
Oh, yeah, totally.
You know, he just so looks like the kind of guy who'd be fine driving his pickup and just relaxing on the farm with his best gal.
Definitely.
Totally. But yeah.
But I think one thing that I loved production-wise is how they made Hamunaptra and how it goes from the sun rises and you just see, you know, desert.
Oh, that visual effect. I love that.
It's amazing. The city just suddenly appears like a mirage.
I think, well, that's kind of the point. It's supposed to be a city that's just, it's lost in the desert.
Yeah.
You know, you think it's a mirage kind of thing, and that the desert hides it. And that, like, seeing that is the epitome of how you should do, like, if it's a fantasy reveal and everybody just accepts it because it kind of makes sense, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, it's because of how, like, the sand reflects and all this other stuff, and, like, the darkness, you can't really see it. And then when the sun rises and it lights up the city and silhouettes it, then you can see it.
Yeah.
Against the backdrop of the endless sands of the deserts.
This lost city.
And I'm like, that is a brilliant visual. I could not imagine a kid watching that and not just being
wow
enthralled.
Yeah.
It's so good. And I think that's where I like to place this movie is it's a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I was ready for this to be... Look, I had a lot of nostalgic love for this, you know, but I was ready to do the reevaluation of it being, it's not too good. Some of the acting's a little hokey. I haven't seen this in a long time. It's probably not aged well. It's aged wonderfully.
Yeah.
There's nothing in here I wouldn't feel comfortable showing to people now. I think people who haven't seen it would really enjoy it.
Definitely, and I think it's it came out in 99, so it's 23?
So I don't know what year it is, but yeah, something like that, 22.
I hope they do something big for, like, the 25th anniversary. I definitely, like, a rescreening of this, so if people haven't seen it, they have the ability to watch it on a bigger screen, because I got to see it on TV. I've seen it on TVs. I'd love to see this on a big screen and just take in that scene alone when the city appears.
It'd be really good. But yeah, I think I'm about ready for the wrap up. Do you have anything you want to throw in before we hit that?
Well, I thought something interesting about this film. None of it was filmed here. In California at Universal Studios.
Yeah, I heard about that. They filmed the huge chunks of it in Marrakesh.
Yep, in Morocco. Because of, all the politics going on in Egypt, they couldn't film there. And the Moroccan army was like, yeah, you could totally film this here, and, we'll provide security for you guys. So, I mean, the closest that we got to it being filmed here was some parts in Arizona.
Yeah, because they just needed extra places in the desert to do second unit and pickups, I assume.
But it's kind of cool to see how it's progressed. I mean, let alone technology and the times that we're in, because the original movie was shot here in California in the desert.
Yeah, it was just filmed in a back lot, right?
No, in the actual desert.
Oh, they drove out to Victorville or something?
They drove, I don't remember where it is. I think it's a 2-3 hour drive from where we currently are. So, this guy that I watch, Random Land on YouTube, he did a full video of the filming location where you see Imhotep out on the mountain.
Oh, really?
And he drove out there, and yeah, he was able to set up his camera and then put side-by-side shots, and he would walk, and you'd see Imhotep walking. So we're very close to that filming location.
Oh,
so
that's cool.
We could always visit. But I thought it was cool that, technology-wise, we're able to, go out to the deserts and
literally build these giant set pieces.
And you'd think, they're in Egypt. You've got, statues of Anubis, and you have these.
Well, that's just set design.
That's set design, but when you're watching the movie,
when you're watching it in the expanse of everything around you, you're just like, that can't be a computer. That looks too good.
And that can't be a soundstage.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say this is a really good-looking movie.
Very beautiful movie.
If I had to give any praise for why you should watch it, just watch it because of, the visuals. It looks so good.
That and the score.
The score is very good.
The score is beautiful.
I think the opening sequence, if you don't like the music, you'll know if you're not going to like the movie. Because it's a very good score, and it opens strong.
Yeah, and I think this movie, alone with, my love for Egyptology after watching this, I think this movie also gave me the love for scores that I have.
Yeah, I've never been a big fan of, music scores from movies. It's one of those things, there's some that I really dig, but it's I dig a song from a score. You listen to albums.
I listen to soundtracks, I listen to scores, and I think with this movie, I could listen to the score, backwards and forwards because it's beautiful, but also the score gives me a lot of Lawrence of Arabia vibes.
I thought this movie took so much from Lawrence of Arabia when they're racing into the city and when they're having the battle with the Foreign Legion at the beginning. I'm like, these guys are taking whole cloth from S tier films.
And then we get the train in the next movie.
Oh yeah, we do. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I would highly recommend.
Yeah, overall wonderful movie. Not scary, but it is a horror.
There's a couple of creepy moments that I think if you don't have a high horror constitution, you're gonna jump.
Yeah.
But if you do, you'll be fine. This is a movie I would be totally fine showing to a kid.
Yeah.
Even 8 or 9, I don't think there's anything. Even as young as 5, 6, or 7. There's nothing in here.
I don't even think there's any profanity.
I don't think so either. I even think the dirtiest this thing is a half-hearted joke that you can't even as a kid you're never gonna get anyway.
Yeah.
But that's all I got. So
let alone the guy that runs the prison that Rickson, the warden. I can't think of his name.
He's the warden.
He's the warden. When he, puts his hand on Evie's lap and he's like, I'm a very lonely man, and she slaps his hand and the whole prison laughs. I think that's the worst.
The raciest this movie gets. By far.
Also, that prison scene?
It's a hotel, isn't it?
It's an apartment complex.
Oh, yeah. I heard about that and I was like, this is a crummy apartment complex. I feel bad for who lives here.
But it's just really? That's an apartment?
It's
okay.
Marrakesh, I guess.
I guess.
We'll visit next week. It'll be fun.
Sure, we got the time. But let's wrap it here. What's your rating on this movie?
2 thumbs up. Would highly recommend this. I would say if you have a free weekend or free like 2 hours to kill, you could do a lot worse than this. I would highly recommend it. I did not feel bad watching it.
And it doesn't feel like 2 hours because the story just goes. It doesn't feel like they lag in any places.
Oh no, not at all. This was a real fast, real tight 2 hours.
Yeah. So I highly recommend it. It's one of my favorite movies. It's on my top 10 list.
Ooh, spoiling your top 10.
That's right. You guys won't get the full 10 until December, but this is on the list.
Oh my. Well, I could see it.
But since my pick is over, what are we going to be watching next week?
Well, next week, you spoiled your top 10, I'll spoil mine. Next week's film is on my top 10 list and pretty high as a matter of that. And it's going to be the 1981 Sam Raimi masterpiece starring Bruce Campbell. It is The Evil Dead, which unironically made me want to go make films.
Dean is so excited.
I love this movie. This movie, unironically, I've probably seen more than any other film. I love it to death. It is so much fun. And I can't wait. But, Boo, where can they find us to talk about it?
Well, if you want to listen to us on a different platform than you currently are, you can find us on Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, just about anywhere where podcasts are streamed. And if you want to follow us on social media, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at the Film Club Podcast. But we're also at one more location. Dean, why don't you tell them where else we are?
Well, if you want to find us anywhere else, you can go to our YouTube channel, In the Frame, where you can find this podcast, the Film Club Podcast, as well as the other podcasts we do. The Double Feature Picture Show with me and David, where we bring two films together, talk about them, compare them, contrast them, and dig deep into that double feature, as well as the Film Odyssey podcast that I do with my brother, where we count down the AFI Top 100, looking for the best film of all time. And, Boo, anything else you want to plug, or is that it?
I think that's it. And we'll end it with the quote, "Death is only the beginning."
But this is the end of the podcast.
So. It is, and you'll see us next week.
All right. Peace, everyone.
Stay spooky.